Hello everyone, and welcome to the lesson on Introduction to Gas Exchange. We'll keep it simple today and just try to get familiar with some big picture concepts. To start, we have to think about why we even need to carry out gas exchange. Well, living organisms, such as us, need energy to carry out our functions. Things like walking or running, what is called locomotion, and even our basic metabolic functions like keeping our heart beating, all need energy. And the way we get that energy is through a process known as respiration. During respiration, we use glucose and oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy. The glucose, which we get from the food we eat, has energy stored in its chemical bonds, and through the oxidation of this molecule, that energy becomes available for our body to use. But what about oxygen? How do we get oxygen? The second reactant needed to oxidize glucose. Most living organisms can't really make their own oxygen, with plants, of course, being a notable exception. So they get the oxygen they need from the air that they breathe. Okay, so we got our glucose and we got our oxygen, but we still have one more problem. We need a way to get rid of this carbon dioxide, which is a waste product of respiration. If it builds up in our bodies, it can actually be lethal, so we need to remove it. By now, you can probably start to see just how important gas exchange really is. But just one more question. How do our bodies exchange these gases? Well, that's where our respiratory system comes in, which serves as the way for these gases to move into and out of our bodies. Both the acquisition of oxygen and the removal of carbon dioxide are achieved through gas exchange. When we inhale, oxygen-rich air goes into our lungs, and when we exhale, carbon dioxide comes out. But what's going on inside the lungs? How is this happening? It all goes back to a concept you've probably encountered before: diffusion. As a quick recap, diffusion is the process by which particles move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration, down a concentration gradient. This is what happens in our lungs. Oxygen moves from the air, where it's in a higher concentration, to the blood, and carbon dioxide, which has a higher concentration inside, moves out. Now, there are a number of factors that can affect diffusion, and therefore the rate of exchange of gases. Let's go through them one by one. First, we have diffusion distance. Now imagine these cubes are single-celled organisms. When they're smaller, there's a shorter distance that oxygen has to travel to get to the center of the cell. As the cell gets bigger, this distance increases, and oxygen takes even longer to reach the center. So smaller organisms perform gas exchange much faster compared to large ones if they're relying on simple diffusion and didn't have a respiratory system in place. On top of that, larger organisms also tend to have greater metabolic needs, which means that they're going to need more oxygen, to meet their body's demands. This makes it even harder to get by with just direct diffusion from the surroundings. This is actually one of the main reasons why larger animals tend to be multicellular, with a system in place for efficient gas exchange. Next up, we have surface area to volume ratio. And this concept is why we need a proper exchange system in organisms. We'll see as we move on. So, the more area you have available on the surface of the cell for gas exchange, the more efficiently the diffusion can take place. But this isn't the only factor. Volume also plays an important role here. Remember, the bigger you are, the more oxygen you're going to need, and the slower you're going to get that oxygen reaching your innermost cells if you're just relying on diffusion. So, when we keep that factor in mind, what really matters ultimately is the surface area to volume ratio, which is basically the ratio of the surface area compared to the volume. Now, smaller organisms will have a higher surface area to volume ratio, which implies that they have a larger surface area relative to their volume. But larger organisms have a lower surface area to volume ratio. That means that their volume is larger relative to their surface area. Remember, a ratio of surface area to volume simply means that the value of the total surface area is being divided by the value of the volume. And that's it. If the surface area is higher, the value will also be higher. But if the volume is higher, relatively, then that value will decrease. Now, let's look at this practically with these cubes here. The surface area of the smallest one is 6 times the area of one side, which is 4. 2 by 2 is 4. So 6 by 4 gives us 24 centimeters. And the volume is 2 cubed, or 2 to the power of 3, which gives us 8. That gives us a ratio of 3. Now the second cube has a surface area of 96, while the volume is 64. So note that both the surface area and the volume have increased as the organism grows larger, but the volume has increased more relative to the surface area. So the second one has a surface area to volume ratio of 1.5. Notice how this is half of the original first cube's surface area to volume ratio. Okay, now let's look at the biggest one. The surface area here would be 6 times 36, which gives us 216. And the volume is 6 cubed, which also gives us 216. So the surface area to volume ratio just becomes 1. So here we see that surface area to volume ratio is decreasing as the organism's size is increasing. And if the surface area to volume ratio decreases as the organism grows larger, then that means that just diffusion from the environment alone will be too slow to meet the metabolic demands of the organism. And this is why there is a need for a proper exchange system to develop, which helps speed up that gas exchange in large organisms.
Quick pause. If you're finding value in this explanation, there's so much more to discover at Alt Academy, where we break down every A-level concept with the same clarity. Now back to the video lesson.
But even surface area to volume ratio and diffusion distance aren't the only factors that affect the rate of diffusion. The steepness of what is called the concentration gradient also affects the rate of gas exchange. A concentration gradient means the difference in concentration of a substance in one region compared to another region. For example, in this diagram, the inside of the cells have a higher concentration of carbon dioxide, and the outside has a much lower concentration. So there's a pretty steep concentration gradient for carbon dioxide, and it's going to move from the inside of the cell to the outside through this cell membrane. Similarly, the concentration of oxygen here is greater on the outside of the membrane, so oxygen will move from here to here into the cell. Now, in order for effective and speedy gas exchange to occur, the steepness of the concentration gradient needs to be maintained. This is why the respiratory system is so closely integrated with the vascular system. Take a look at this alveolus. Alveoli, by the way, are little air sacs present in the lungs where gas exchange can occur. So they're part of the gas exchange system. Oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the blood, which you can see here in this capillary. The capillary is part of the circulatory system. So as you can see, the two systems are very closely linked. And the capillaries have blood in them that is always flowing. So that flowing blood brings carbon dioxide from the body where it can diffuse into the alveoli. So the alveoli have a much lower concentration of carbon dioxide. That allows carbon dioxide to diffuse from the blood into the alveoli. On the other hand, the concentration of oxygen in the alveoli is much higher, so oxygen can diffuse from the air in the alveoli to the blood. Now, if this blood were not moving, the concentration of oxygen in the blood would eventually get closer and closer to that of the air in the alveoli, and diffusion would start slowing down. But since the blood is flowing, it takes that oxygen away and maintains the concentration gradient. Now, before we move towards the conclusion of this lesson, let's revisit the concept of a large organism versus a small organism one more time. Imagine that each of these cubes represents a cell. Notice, when you have a single-celled organism, every side of its surface is exposed to the air and can be used for diffusion. On the other hand, with the multicellular organism, only the outer cells can be used for direct diffusion. Not all of their surfaces, nor the cells located internally, are exposed. In this case, using only diffusion, larger organisms, which have many cells which make up tissues and organ systems, would be deprived of oxygen and eventually die. To prevent this problem, organisms have thin and small blood vessels called capillaries that run between the cells to expose as much surface area as possible to the external environment. Oxygen-rich blood travels through these blood vessels and delivers oxygen to our cells. By dividing into smaller and smaller branches, the vascular system ensures that all the cells can receive enough oxygen, and that carbon dioxide, which, if you remember, was produced by cells as a byproduct while breaking down glucose to make energy, can be removed. Therefore, the close linking of the circulatory system with that of the gas exchange system ensures that larger organisms can overcome the problem of a slow diffusion rate because of their low surface area to volume ratios. These capillaries interweaving in between the cells essentially decrease the diffusion distance for gas exchange to occur at an extremely high rate, and ensure that oxygen from the environment reaches every cell and carbon dioxide is promptly removed as well. So, now that we have an understanding of why we need this gas exchange system, let's zoom out for a second and take a look at the machinery that makes it all possible. So, air goes in through the nasal passage, through the pharynx and larynx, and then finally enters the trachea. Now, the trachea then divides into two main bronchi, or right and left bronchus, respectively. These bronchi then further divide into smaller bronchioles, which then ultimately end as alveoli, those little sacs that are the site for gas exchange. Alright, so let's summarize what we did in this lesson. To start, we looked at how we get energy by using oxygen to break down glucose, thereby producing carbon dioxide as a byproduct. We looked at different factors that affect diffusion, especially how having a higher surface area to volume ratio would make diffusion much more efficient. We looked at the role that capillaries play in maintaining the concentration gradient by taking blood away from the lungs. We also took a look at the close association between the respiratory and circulatory system, and how this close association ensures that all cells receive oxygen and that carbon dioxide is taken away promptly. And then finally, we briefly looked at the path that air has to travel and the structures it has to go through to reach the lungs. I hope you found this lesson helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey there! If you found this A-level biology lesson helpful, why don't you head over to altacademy.org and sign up for our full A-level biology course. In addition to biology, you could sign up for physics, chemistry, math, or 4 other A-level subjects. Thousands of students have already taken the leap. What are you waiting for? See you there.